This is the most fantastical gimmick in my whole criminal career.
Oh no, it's a podcast. I didn't know you were going to be here.
Oh, gross. You're all here.
I don't know. I was going to be here.
Oh, look,
the
podcast.
kaiju transit system's not great. I know.
Well, it's just I imagine that there's like you're at the bar, and it's like this podcast comes walking in. You're like, ugh, look who just came in.
Oh my
podcast.
God.
For the nerds that walk in that the biker gang beats up.
Yeah.
We knocked over their bikes like a dime.
My pocket protector.
Yeah.
My slide rule.
Kick us off the pool table because we're dominating it, and they don't like that. Pool is probably too cool for us. The arcade machine in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Area 51. Or something more classic.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, it's episode 33 this here podcast, kids. And we've got so much to talk about. Goodness, things to address, what have you. Silver, how are things going? You know what? Sometimes I forget.
Oh.
Oh dear God, run!
The totally accurate representation of me.
Well, I did an AI version where there was this like angelic choir singing about the doom that is Silver Vow that was coming for us. It didn't quite fit exactly what I was looking for, but there was a lot of like, oh, it's pretty good.
Well, darn,
pretty good.
I want to see that now.
No, well, I'm going to try and make a better one. There's always going to improve those stupid little videos I do. Anyway, Silver, how's it going, champ?
School hell.
No.
Need more be said?
You go to Hell University?
Yes.
Beelzebub teaches you math?
Yeah, that jerk.
What a jerk.
Weirdly, he's good at it.
This week. Of 2 next week.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, this is your fault, and I warned you.
I know.
Well, don't just accept it.
I'm resigned to my fate. Let me lie.
All right, that's just, whatever. As Silver Vow descends into the second circle of hell, Ross, how was your week?
It was pretty good. I didn't really watch or play a whole lot, unfortunately. My week's been kind of weird, but it was a good week and went shooting yesterday, which is always a delight and always fun. So that
Rock on.
Ross likes guns.
Ross likes guns. That was the so we've been working on a new intro song, and so we would do like these little like catches for each of the people in the podcast, and so it would be easy to be like, oh, Rhett's our fearless leader or whatever, and Jason's a mad doctor or whatever, how it puts into the rock song. And Silver Vow's a giant kaiju monster, and we couldn't think of anything for Ross, so we just put in Ross likes guns.
I mean, it's not a lie.
He enjoys his guns.
Real by his side, Ross likes guns.
Jason, how's it going?
Pretty good. I watched a couple movies this week. I watched Idiocracy,
It's always good.
and I watched The Phantom.
Oh,
It's cheesy and it's corny, but I love it.
Eventually, he will get really jaded and refuse to save people in the Titanic, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, is that with the Greek hero? I can't even remember his name now.
It is Billy Zane.
Billy Zane, yes, the Greek icon, Billy Zane, and bald icon too. Man wore
Yeah,
a rug in
yeah.
all those movies.
And let's see. I watched a few episodes of an anime with a totally unpronounceable name. It's an older one. This guy wakes up. He's got a mask that's attached to his face. It doesn't come off. Everybody around him are all like beast men. He's the only one that even appears humanish.
This isn't
Everybody
the
else-
mask with Cher, is it?
No,
Oh,
that's a completely different anime
Uh-huh.
and really depressing.
Detailed,
So far, this one
hand-drawn.
hasn't been depressing. Yeah.
By the way, I am excited for the flood of reaction videos to Grave of the Fireflies on because now it's on Netflix and everybody has access to it.
Oh my God!
yeah.
It's gonna be a flood. Oh no!
Delicious. Just num 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 num. It's
Oh,
all these,
Give me all those tears.
all these girls horrified as they see what happens to these children.
The other thing, I played Princess. What is it called? Peach at Showtime or something like that.
Okay. I mean, I've never heard of it, so I can't add to that.
It's Princess Peach Showtime.
Oh, is it that new Mario game?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Princess Peach focused one? I heard it was pretty good. Like, I don't...
Yeah, it's been pretty fun.
I mean, they're always
It-
solid. Nintendo proprietary first-party stuff are always just good.
Yeah, it's very different in terms of like power ups. You don't get power ups the traditional way with Mario, where you break the blocks and stuff. It
She has to
opens
wait
up
for
with
her
Peach-
period.
Yeah, she goes to a theater. The bad guy shows up at the theater, and then she goes in to fix the plays. And when she goes into the play, she becomes the character in the play, and that's how she gets her powers and stuff for that particular level.
Okay.
So it's been pretty good, pretty solid.
And I know we're getting a Zelda-focused game,
Yeah, Zelda
Here
focused
soon.
one. Yeah,
which is perfectly fine. Yeah, I'm sure it's fun.
Well, Nintendo, like you said, they tend to be pretty solid. So
Yeah, just whatever. I watched a really good anime and a really bad one. Really bad one. Gosh, I can't remember the name. The legendary hero dies and
oh,
they put his
Good.
body into the corpse. It sucks. This anime sucks. I saw another one where it's hard to adventure while raising two children, something like that. That one's mediocre. It's fine. As far as anime, it's mediocre and okay. It does the cliche that you see in Japanese anime, especially with isekais, where he's in the other world and like he introduces like Japanese cuisine and it blows people's mind.
Yes.
Where he's like he like introduces soy sauce and it becomes this obsession with the people in that world where they start to make it everywhere and it becomes a big thing of trade where people are getting wealthy off of the spreading of soy sauce because no one can live without soy sauce. As somebody who's tried soy sauce, it's okay. Like I'm not that into soy sauce. But he introduces like curry and people's minds are being blown. And it's like, I get it, Japan. You love your country and everything attached to it, and you think it's some of the greatest. Look, and I don't I don't begrudge Japan for being proud of their culture, as well as the food that they've introduced to the world, even though curry isn't theirs.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll gloss over that.
I don't begrudge their pride, but every single time this happens, where the guy shows up and starts introducing like soy sauce or something, and the world mind is blown. Like nobody can live without this amazing magical like sauce attached to food, and it's okay. Calm down. It's nice, but goodness sake. Like he introduces Jello, and they're all freaking out about it.
Oh my gosh.
There's some other goofy stuff he added.
Jello.
Well, because you don't have a gelatin type substance, he uses like this leftover from slime and fruit mixed together to create Jello.
Oh my God.
And then they struggle to get enough of the slime like material because it's worth nothing, and therefore no adventurer picks it up, so he has to get it himself. But it creates this market of an increased need for slime jelly because it becomes popular, so people are going out there harvesting slime jelly. It's a thing. It's a thing.
You could easily get gelatin.
I was just gonna say, do they not have horses or animals? That's so funny. Japan doesn't know what gelatin is.
They don't know how to
It
handle
comes from
it.
like fish too.
Look, this is how they wrote it, and jellied slime monsters. Don't question. It's hard to adventure by raising two children.
I shouldn't think of the science behind. It's hard to adventure by raising two children.
Anyway, I was watching an anime called To Eternity. That's really good. I would recommend it, but it's not a really new anime. It's older, and it's a bummer anime, by the way, Silver. So you'd be into it.
Yes.
But To Eternity is really good, and it's perpetual bummer stories. It's not just one; they're stacking them. So.
Finally. I'm watching sad anime, I can salt my dinner.
Me and Silver like to get real sad sometimes.
Yes, I like to feel something.
But before we get too long, goodness, Ross, it's Earth, Wind and Fire Day.
Oh my God, it is!
It's literally September 21st.
Oh. I do remember.
Yeah, did you miss the little intro video where I put a little tiny snippet of Earth, Wind, and Fire dancing?
Oh, yeah, I must have. I hope you don't get copyright claimed. I'm sorry.
It's not even the catchy part. It's the very beginning where like the music's kind of starting. So I think I'm fine.
Let us pray.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, amazing, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Such a great song. And September, like literally, this is the day that they refer to in the song September. It's September 21st. So, I mean, it's a hype day already. It's already a good day that we're going to ruin with absurd conversations. On top of that, James Earl Jones passed away, which we should have talked about last week, but it just escaped my mind because I've got 1,000 things to think about. One of the greatest actors of all time apparently grew up with a lisp, which he overcame, and has an amazing voice and is part of some of the biggest franchises of all time. Star Wars and Lion King and the one about baseball. Field of Dreams.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Conan.
Well, yeah, he was also in Sandlot.
Sandlot, yeah, the legendary ball player that lived over the wall. Yeah.
Hercules.
The bad guy in Conan. Anyway, the world is worse off
his
without
most
James
important
Earl
role,
Jones.
where he turns into a snake.
Yes. And he's inside that big room where he has orgies with all the white women.
As you do. Also, he was apparently quite the firearms collector. There's some people on YouTube that have bought some of the firearms from his collection as he got older. So,
right on. He's amazing, and the world is worse off without him because he had such a contribution. Apparently, to help out his family after his passing, he did sign off on people being able to, whoever, I assumed he signed up with Disney, being able to use his likeness / voice for content in the future.
Interesting.
Wow.
Which, however you feel about AI / recreations of things, he seemed to care whether or not his family was taken care of, or if they were presenting his voice accurately with Darth Vader, I guess, or whatever. But yes, he will be missed. Also setting that aside, as we go down the list of important things to bring up, Penguin came out on HBO, if anybody was expecting. This is the Penguin from the Batman movie universe. So it's part of that one single The Batman off.
Wait, really?
Yes.
What the fuck? Why?
Yeah. So this is part of that. Yeah.
They've been
Well,
doing that too frequently.
and
Like,
we've been
let's take
waiting.
this side character that
The
pretty much nobody cares about unless the main character is in the story with them, and let's totally do something with this person. Like, no,
yeah, this is the Reeves universe.
Something's in the way.
Well, by the way, the Penguin, who is played like a straight up, mobster with a New York accent and that sort of thing, is played by Colin Farrell, of all people, with a huge amount of makeup and prosthetics and stuff. And part of the reason why I was sort of into this, not because I was a huge fan of Matt Reeves' Batman. There was some good stuff. There was some bad stuff. Colin Farrell is amazing as the Penguin. Like, you can't tell it's him. He does a perfect sort of faux New York accent to it. He acts like a mobster. It's really great. And so they've been playing, and I think because he did such a good job with that character, there was that it rolled into a show, Penguin on HBO, that HBO's paying for. Anyway, the first episode came out. It's pretty much a aftermath of the events of the Batman movie, because Carmine Falcone dies, who is a major mobster character in the Batman comics and lore and stuff. And it causes this huge vacuum, so it's like mobster crime trying to fill the vacuum of the head mobster who died. It's pretty good. I'm going to be honest. It's pretty good. If you're into mobster crime stuff, I like it. It is, what's probably my favorite part of the Reeves universe is his Gotham is really good. It's very dirty and it's very gritty. It's
Not
very
just Chicago.
Yeah, but like the worst version of Chicago. Like just really bad, torn apart Chicago where they still don't pick up the trash or whatever.
I was thinking about the old, well, they're old now, I guess, but not really old, but the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. And boy, you can really tell Michael Mann had some effect on those movies. Christopher Nolan watched some Michael Mann films when he was a younger man.
Mm. I mean, one of my bigger issues with the Nolan movies is his Gotham wasn't exactly what I pictured Gotham to be. But
it's too based in reality.
Yeah, it was too realistic. I wasn't a huge fan of the Batman, of Nolan's Batman. Mm-hmm. His villains were good.
Yeah, they were great. Have you ever seen the movie Thief?
I don't think so.
Early 80s. You should watch it, and you will see Christopher Nolan definitely got some inspiration, I think, from that movie, because that movie is a Chicago movie. Like, part of it takes place in LA, but like all the super moody neon parts are all in Chicago.
The iconic rail system that goes down the middle of the road, which was in Spider-Man 2, which doesn't exist in New York, even though Spider-Man's in New York. They filmed that part in Chicago.
But yeah, it's anyway, it's a good movie. You should watch it. James Caan. It's awesome.
At any rate, one episode out, I have watched The Penguin, and I would recommend it. It's good. If you're into crime, mafia, that sort of thing. If you're going, where's Batman? He's probably around somewhere. I don't know. Moving on. Most people this week, most podcasts or social media or pop culture commentary is talking about Agatha. We aren't talking about Agatha. Why? Because we ain't watching it. Because it's not for us. And I think that's the biggest problem with this show is because it isn't for us. The question then becomes, who is Agatha all along really for? The best I can delineate from commentary from other podcasts is it seems to be for stay-at-home moms who drink wine or single aunts.
I was going to say, I don't even think it's for someone like Val, like a younger person. Like it just seems like for people my age, women my age.
Yeah.
Like it's bizarre.
Do you remember how when Acolyte came out and there was this big deal where he said, "Is this the gayest Star Wars ever made?" And I was like, "Oh well, no, it's not the gayest, but it's pretty gay," sort of. And the joke around that, and it became this big point of contention that added to the controversy around the Acolyte and its inevitable cancellation for season 2. Well, out the gate, they are saying that this is the gayest Marvel project ever made. And it makes me wonder whether or not the goal for saying such a thing is because of the reaction to Acolyte. Also, from
entirely possible.
I think it's Pennsylvania Gay News is saying it's pretty gay.
The sole source where I get my entertainment news.
Well, I found an article that they had written about it, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." And they're like, "Agatha all along is surprisingly gay," and it's from the Pennsylvania Gay News, and I was like, "Surprisingly gay."
What does it take for the Gay News to be surprised?
They're like,
you know
"Whoa, this is a little too gay for us."
Listen, pal, we're gay, but come on.
I'm not going to spend too much time on this show.
This is. I just wanted to say that this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where they're like, "Hey, we have this character. They show up and they do a good job, and then we do a series on them or a movie on them, and it's like, really, why? No, before the Scarlet Witch series and everything." Nobody outside of Marvel circles knew who Agatha Harkness
Even
was.
people in Marvel circles didn't know who Agatha was. She's such an obscure character. She was like one of the character's nannies, and I think the Fantastic Four. Like no one gives a crap about this character.
Right. And so then they're going, "We're going to do a series on this person." And like you said, who is this for? It's not for Marvel fans who would be eating this up if it was actually a mainstream character that people cared about. And they would be bringing other fans along. This show is going to go nowhere, and it's going to die.
There was one of the characters in this show, a young man, the actor who happens to be gay, is, I believe, also playing a gay character, so it fits, I guess.
Stretch.
But somebody brought up a comment where they're like, "Well, what is one thing you want to get out of this show?" Or something like that. And his response was that Marvel isn't just for straight white men. Now, look, it hasn't been just for straight white men for like 5 years now.
Yeah, but we're in year 5 of people being interviewed saying this in this fucking franchise.
Right.
All right.
And it's like, look, no one said if you're gay, you can't even like Marvel. What you're telling me is it's no longer about just straight white men.
Now, Rhett, I distinctly remember back in the early 2000s when they were making those Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. I remember they said, "Hey, we're making a Spider-Man movie. Except for you queers, you get out of here. This is for us.
Avert your eyes."
you don't even look at it. Don't even. Like, I distinctly, it was hard. You know, it was tough.
Fine. It's not about straight white men, but that's the largest demographic that I think you want to watch your thing. So if you think you can get enough eyeballs on a show that seems to cater to middle-aged women, then fine.
Yeah, whatever.
Good luck, because it's not for me. I have no commentary on whether or not the show's good. I've heard mostly bad responses to it, but I can't really comment on that because I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
but good luck with your gay-centered wine mom show about an obscure character in Marvel that has nothing to do with anything, and this isn't very superhero-y, if I'm being honest. Anyway,
we're going to take a scripted television show and make it reality TV audience for it. Wait, well...
Just to kind of go off what Ross was saying earlier, where he said that he felt that it was marketed towards women his age. This, because of what you've been saying, and because of that, I would say that this is probably marketed towards my wife. Direction, but this isn't a show that she would even watch.
No. Yeah, it's so bizarre.
I think it's single ants. I think it's single white women sitting at home. I think that's what it's for.
And they're not going to watch it either.
They may not. I don't know what the numbers are for it, because Disney tends to keep these things close to their chest. The main factor when it comes to any of these shows as to whether or not they have longevity in any respect is, do they have enough people viewing it compared to how much did it cost?
Yeah.
I would not be shocked to find out this is in the 80 million area, but who knows?
Yeah.
Not to bury
the. Be shocked when a second season doesn't come out and they end up losing money on it.
Well, they want one too. So once again, it comes down to if you like Agatha all along and you want a second season, you need to watch it, and you encourage people to watch it, because it's gonna come down to this cost us this much and not many people saw it, and that's why it's canceled every time. It has nothing, like, we're not out here. We have never advocated for canceling any show or protesting any show. I don't care if you like what seems like a piece of garbage, but that piece of garbage isn't for me. It might be a gem to some jaded white woman that's really into Wiccan stuff. I don't know. Not for this guy. Anyway, we're not going to bury the lead, which is what I consider one of the bigger news to come out this week. Ross is super excited about it. They have revealed through some promotional videos and whatnot some information about Dragon Age Veilguard that should be coming down the way. Dragon Age, classically made by BioWare.
Yeah, and we discussed this earlier in the summer, Rhett and I.
Yeah.
I think the main thing we took from it is, oh no, it's another purple magic fantasy game.
Yeah.
Which is very not Dragon Age of it.
Now, not to imply that I have special knowledge about Dragon Age than anybody else, but I was there for Dragon Age from the beginning. I have the collector's edition of the original Dragon Age on PlayStation 3. I played it through multiple playthroughs with multiple different characters. I was not a huge fan of the changes in Dragon Age 2 to make it focused on, like, heavily story focused on this individual character, but whatever, fine. I even played Dragon Age 3, and I maxed out the trophies on it's not Dragon Age 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, if you will. And I maxed out the trophies in Dragon Age Inquisition. This is how much I enjoy Dragon Age, but the problem is, between 1 and even 2, they lost some of the original people and the original vision of Dragon Age, and between 2 and Inquisition, there's a massive change in the company. And the original people who made Dragon Age are no longer there. So now we're talking about a company that isn't the same company trying to make things with a different vision. So companies change. So when you say, oh, I like BioWare, and it's like, it's not the same BioWare. All right. Just to establish this. But we get some information revealed about Veilguard. One of the initial videos that were put out was they were basically going into detail on the character creator involved with the game. And the character creator allows you to do a bunch of different things with the characters. You can add there's a lot of details that seem overly unnecessary to put this amount of detail into a character creator. How's it pronounced, Jason? Vitiligo or whatever, the skin condition?
Vitiligo?
Vitiligo. Yeah, I'm going to pronounce the way I want to. You know what? I'm literally... Look, Silver. Look, Silver. I asked for pronunciation, and you gave me sass.
Well, I'm going to continue to give you sass about it now.
You know what, woman? You're going to get some old school Android punching.
Oh, gosh. No, I can't stop thinking about that, and I was thinking about it earlier today and laughing to myself.
By yourself about this stupid conversation.
Android children upgrade.
Yeah. Maybe we will have a conversation about this at another time. That being said, why is there so much controversy around this game based upon the details that we've heard? You can add cellulite to your character, which seems overly unnecessary.
Look, I doubt you could even see that on your character, because these games are never very detailed anymore.
The biggest controversy to basically hit about this game is that they've added the ability to add double mastectomy scars to your character.
Oh.
Silver.
Wait a minute. They have that as like, I know nothing about Dragon Age, but it's a medieval type game. As far as I know. And my gosh, you would die if you had that surgery.
Oh my God. I mean, can I not to like? It is a game. It's medieval fantasy where magic is horrendously dangerous and treated as a necessary evil that is highly regulated. In a world where there are horrible
with magic
blood disease monsters that will infect and take over the world.
People with magic are so dangerous and treated with such disdain that they are kept in nigh slavery inside of like convents.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like it is a very dark world. I mean, there's some Tolkien aspects to it, I guess, with like dwarves sort of like falling, like their empires are failing, and they're kind of holding the line against this evil that is taking into the world, and like it's a very cool world. I really like it, and the double mastectomy scar would make more sense if it was like a bear ripped off my tits, but like a surgical scar? What the fuck? It doesn't even fit remotely in this world. Like, what the fuck?
There's just a guy you go to in the back of the tavern, and you're just like, hey, so I heard you're the guy. He's like, I'm the guy. He takes you to the back. It's like, all right, I got my rusty scalpel here. Prepare to get an infection.
We're gonna blood magic them babies off. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, look. Then you ask, because we're going to address sort of counter arguments to people causing a fit about what's going on with the character creator. But if we're standing back from this presentation, you would add double mastectomy scars into a game because you wanted to add representation of individuals who happen to be trans who remove their breasts and consider themselves men. And so you're adding the ability for players to have their characters reflect who they are into the game. Now, this was inevitably going to, like, that would be why this is in there. It has no lore addition to it. It makes no sense for anything else. It's solely for catering to that group. And that group is a fraction of a percent of individuals, considering what it was going to cause press-wise in people's reactions.
Well, and the only other group it could pertain to are female breast cancer survivors. And how many of them are playing Dragon Age? Like, what the... But either way you split this is bizarre.
Understandably so, yes.
Just... by the way, can I just say, do you know what I think I know we're going to get further into this.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'll let you get further into it. But I think I know where this is coming from. And I think you do too, Rhett.
I think I do.
As far as what game, because there's another. Well, I'll let you get to the net because I know there's something else you're going to mention. So I'll let you get to that.
All right. Ross is holding his tongue.
I'm holding my tongue.
At any rate, this understandably caused a massive stir among the gaming community. One of the initial reactions is, why is this such a big deal? Transgender characters already appeared in BioWare game. That is true, believe it or not. There was a transgender character in BioWare Inquisition. So they've been very political in their representation already in the past, at least in Inquisition, not necessarily in previous games. There weren't trans characters in the previous games, but there was one individual, because I remember the quest. And I remember you could tell this person, it was like, well, I'm a man. It was like, well, I don't see you as a man. And the individual would be like, I don't care what your opinion is, sort of thing. And it's like, oh, all right.
And can I ask, was it like not to have a Game of Thrones reference, but is it like a Brienne of Tarth kind of thing where it's like a woman trying to be a knight or something? Like, what is the context?
Yeah. I think it was a Templar, maybe part of a mercenary crew. I don't remember exactly.
That is a very different context than I think most people would want it to be, by the way.
Right. It's just her and her group treat her as a man.
Right.
And why is it a big deal for you, sort of thing. But it was this one side story where you have to interact with the individual like a couple of times, and that's it. But it is a point where is not actually a man, you become very aware that it's a woman pretending to be a man in the game.
So the character is a mercenary. And has a voice actress, so
yes,
it's not like they were even trying to hide it there.
But they weren't trying to hide it. They were very explicit that the character is trans, which is why I brought it up, because people's response is, why do you care that there's a trans character? There already were trans characters in Inquisition. Hey, gameplay wise with Inquisition, it was a basic fantasy game and I enjoyed it. Is it the best Dragon Age? No. We're going to set that aside for the moment. Anyway, so inevitably the arguments also come down to, well, why do you care so much about the ability to add these different cosmetic features to your characters? By the way, you will be able to change pronouns with the character creator.
Hey, why not? The boring ass space game did it, where who would have even noticed if you had? Because nobody got more than 4 hours into that piece of crap.
I played more, but I still haven't finished.
And that tells you a lot.
Well, right.
So, I mean, to be honest, to be honest about this, I don't care. If they want to have a character creator where somebody can go in and create themselves and change their pronouns, it doesn't actually affect me or my enjoyment of the game. Because that's them. They're doing their own thing on their... It's not even like this is a multiplayer and maybe I would be forced to interact with this person, this hypothetical person. No, I'm playing a single player RPG at home on my computer. They're playing it on their computer, so it doesn't harm me at all.
I think the issue is more about what it means rather than whether it affects you.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, this sort of thing will affect writing in the game, I'm sure. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not going to play this game.
Let's address Jason. You're trying to wrap up this conclusion. We've got so much more to go through. So let's address. What I was going to say is,
go ahead. Considering the fact that the other characters and what you told me about them, yeah. But we can go into that in just a second.
Anyway, so the response then being, why do you care? You don't have to use these cosmetic features. You can make a character however you want to. It doesn't affect you at all. Why is it a big deal to you? Trying to control people. And to be fair, RPGs at their element are you want to make whatever character you want to. Some people make characters that reflect who they are as a person. Some people make aspirational characters, sort of like make a super jack guy who's maybe taller than you are or handsomer than you are, but how could they ever be more handsome than I am today? That being said, here's the thing. A bunch of women started to respond to the character creator and notice some issues with it. Firstly, that apparently the character creator isn't very representational because this is max glute size for a female character.
Oh my god. Hank Hill. Oh no.
And there are a lot of memes about Hank Hill or dogs with no butts, or it's a thing. But this individual, Madam Savvy, I am an 108-pound woman who sits for 15 plus hours a day. I'm not even in my prime here, and you're telling me this is your 100% on the bum slider? Explain how this is your most inclusive character creator yet, because I can't even make a skinny bum in the game. I don't get it. Who is this character creator made for? Because it certainly wasn't made for me. So I suppose the arguments, and if we're going to, not that we're going to analyze her butt, but her butt is bigger than the game would allow her to create. So the argument that it's inclusive, because it allows people to create characters to reflect themselves, doesn't seem to play out very well when it comes to female characters and whether or not you can create a realistic woman, because believe it or not, women tend to be curvy in their presentation. If you've ever seen a woman, I don't know if you've seen a woman before.
Ew. Oh, gross.
I haven't.
Another example, Ross, this is max slider chest size.
What? For
Yeah.
male or female? Or
Female.
both?
Uh,
I have bigger boobs than that.
Once again, the discussion being if the decision making for including transgender options to help cater to individuals who might be transgender so that they can reflect the characters upon themselves, and you're not giving options to actual women, biologically speaking, when it comes to their body size, then the argument that why do you care more representation is good goes out the window, because they don't actually care about representation. They care about representing sort of individuals that fall into their ideological goals. Bust size and butt size being one thing. And I guarantee you, as an aside, I'm going to ascribe motive, but this is just off the top of my head, that the reason why you can't make very big booty, big breasted women is because they don't want white guys making overly sexualized female characters.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And that's a good argument. But that
doesn't represent women,
just,
though.
No.
Yeah.
And if the argument is representation, then you're not succeeding, are you?
Right. The other thing about this, in my opinion, so this is supposed to be a fantasy world RPG, right? Now, technically, I don't remember seeing any green-skinned people, but I mean, it's a fantasy world. You could be going crazy here.
Well, I suppose that's the point of an RPG maker, the character creator. You can just do whatever you want. Like freedom of creation is important, I guess. You could do whatever you want to with a character creator.
And that's how it should be. It's either, make these characters that you're going to play as, either make them practically models, or actually give us the freedom to create whatever the heck we want.
Yeah, just complete, because I don't know. It seems like the Souls games get really wild in their character creator. You can make some real freaks.
Sure.
Genuinely, just completely non-human looking things. and you know, obviously we've all seen what you can do with Bethesda games with a little bit of modding, like not even a ton, and you can really make the sliders go off the end and just make complete, like, you know, banana
Horror
people.
monsters of
Yeah.
unfathomable shape and size.
Yeah.
But here we have a post of somebody opposing people upset with the character creator, saying, you know, these settings are optional, right? I have a hard time believing these people truly like the hobby they claim to be protecting. There's a lot to unpack on your comments there. You know, these settings are optional, right? Look, I'm not going to prescribe or speak for people who seem to be upset with the character creator. Superficially, the reason people might not like it is because it's moving in the game is reflecting an ideological direction that previous fans of Dragon Age might not be a fan of. That's one. And maybe they don't want the game to center around things like gender politics. They want it to center around magic and sword fights. Mm-hmm. And this is a massive signal of what are the priorities of this game to people who, like me, were previously massive fans of Dragon Age. Additionally,
the fact that they went out of their way to program these settings in to the character creator,
it was deliberate.
Really, yeah, it's not like, I mean, it's not something like hair color or eye color or skin color or body type or anything of that nature. They actually had to go above and beyond to put these features in the game.
And we're proud of it because they showed it on their video.
Yeah, and it would be one thing, like, genuinely, if it showed where, like, you know, the sliders could go off where you could just make, you know, somebody have the ass of someone with the most horrific BBL you've ever seen in your life, or, you know, whatever, like, then you could at least go like, oh, they were just, I mean, they're giving you all the options, and that you can just make these people look like complete, I mean, like, all of the armor, like, models will break, like, you're going to be, like, whatever, like, that, then you could at least understand it. But then when it shows that some of these sliders barely change anything, that it's like, well,
which is the point. The character creator is not giving you infinite options to create any character you want to. It solely has this inserted into it for ideological reasons, not because of inclusivity. Because you can't be inclusive when you're restrictive. But the other problem,
inclusive, that'd be fine. I think less people would be ass mad about it. I would wager. I don't know, but where it's so obvious that it's like, well,
yeah, clearly. There's you can't have busty women or big butt women or whatever. Yeah, but I'm going to address the other point here he makes. He says, I have a hard time believing these people truly like the hobby they claim to be protecting. One, nobody is claiming to protect anything. Why are you gatekeeping a hobby? This is like gatekeeping watching movies. It's a form of entertainment. Okay? Secondly, you're claiming that people who enjoy video games wouldn't be upset with this, as if you're ascribing some sort of collective moral framework that we all possess. It's a form of entertainment. Get off your high horse. What is it? The gamers rise up. There is no collective form of gamers to rise up. There is no collective form of gamers that agree with anything, because believe it or not, it encompasses a wide swath of people that mostly is dominated by men.
Yeah, typically speaking, that's about the only part of it that is fairly monolithic. I mean, even that's been kind of changing a little, but, like, you know,
I don't know what beyond it is. It's like 60-40, 70-30, something like that.
Yeah, but even then, like, I mean, beyond that, there's quite a bit of variation in the thinking of people that play video games. I mean,
right. Well, it's like, oh, well, gamers are going to get upset about this, and it's like, you mean the gamers who play Madden who play football games all the time, or are you talking about the people who play, you know, Mario? Because those are vastly different people.
Typically speaking, the Animal Crossing folks are not the same people that play Black Ops 6.
Precisely. So I always found it weird, the claiming of people who claim to truly love this hobby. And they
Well, and
think
I hate that because, like, by the way, that argument sucks too. Because, like, well, if you really love the hobby, you would just let these developers do whatever they wanted and not have an opinion on it. And it's like, well, okay, like, what kind of argument is that? Like,
Yeah, that's
you
just
know,
that's just a shut up argument.
well, of course, but it's just so bizarre. I've never understood that because you see it in more hobbies than just video games. I mean, we've seen
If
it.
you really like this hobby, you would let everybody do whatever the heck they wanted.
Yeah, you would just
Well,
let the
no,
IP
that's not
holder
how
do
it
whatever they
works.
wanted, and it's like, well, no, like, and also I can't stop them. They can do whatever they want,
yeah,
but I'm not
whatever.
gonna buy it necessarily. I mean, good lord, I used to buy Call of Duty games. I haven't bought a brand new Call of Duty game in more than a decade, probably 15 years. So I mean, like, people change, even if they are still making the same thing over and over again. It doesn't mean I'm going to buy it every time. Like, come on.
Well, and,
But
and that's
I can have an opinion on this. Like, it's just so silly. What a silly argument.
that's the rub of the issues with these things too. Is it's like, let's say a game comes out, Concord, and the reflection of the community is, I don't like it for whatever reason. It's derivative. I don't like the character designs. I think it's quote unquote woke or whatever, and they don't buy it. And then people get online and they're like, the misogynists have won. How could you destroy the potential of a game? And it's like, how quickly? I owe you my money. Do you know how this is supposed to work? You're supposed to make something that's trying to attract me to give you the money, not me feel an obligation because of some moral, ethical, or political reason to support your game so that the chuds don't win. That's not how this works. You have no obligation to the money I possess. None whatsoever. Believe it or not, I'm probably not going to buy this game. But the point isn't that I'm not going to buy the game. It's because, I've criticized some of the design choices for the game. How could you? I don't owe you my money. And I think what they're mainly afraid of is that the criticisms will spread to others and it will lower sales of the game. But why do you feel it necessary to defend a game that you don't like? It's $1 million company. Why do you feel you need to defend BioWare?
Yeah.
Turn it into a culture
Someone
war.
think of the corporations.
Someone think of the corporations.
Yes. Yay.
So what is the general sentiment despite the throwing of crap back and forth? Stuttering Craig, who you may or may not like, apparently has sources on the inside, and it looks like Veilguard pre-orders are about 1,069 according to his sources, which are less than the coming Zelda game.
Yeah. So little.
Yeah, the coming Zelda game has over 4,400 in the last 2 weeks.
Now,
And
granted,
Wow.
to play devil's advocate here, I want to make that very clear. Who pre-orders a game anymore? But I mean, you can still use it as it can still be a data point. It may not be as strong a data point as it would have been 15 years ago. But that Zelda game already has 4,000 compared to that is crazy.
In 2 weeks of the pre-orders. And this is how they judge interest, pre-orders, essentially. Yeah. And here's an interesting Twitter post. Top surgery scars in Dragon Age Veilguard are real, by the way. Can't have big breasts, but you can roleplay someone who had them and had them surgically removed to reflect the gender your character thinks that they are. Which is an interesting point. You can't have large boobs, but you can roleplay as a character who used to have large boobs.
By the way, can I just say, like, if this had, let's say this was actually like in a different universe, parallel universe, this is a feature in Dragon Age 2 character creator, right?
Sure.
You know what my first thought would be? My first thought would be, God damn, that's dark. That you can make a character who, like, roleplay a character who's been tortured so horribly they had their breasts cut off. Because that's the kind of world that Dragon Age actually is.
Right.
Like, that it's set.
Yeah, you're right there.
like, so I mean, it's very indicative of the world we live in now culturally, and especially the online world, which is just horrendous. That's not the first thing you think of, because the reality is that world, and I can't remember the name of that world. Sorry, I'm not. It's been a long
Ferelden.
time since. Yeah, that is actually what those scars would be. I mean, let's be honest. Is like someone's been tortured so horrifically that that's what happened to them. Like,
Well, and double mastectomies wouldn't be a thing in a fantasy world. It just wouldn't.
well,
That's a product
what do
of
you
a
mean?
modern society.
They don't have a way to detect cancer, or
No,
Well, the
I'm
thing is
saying
that-
gender politics would not be a
Yeah,
thing in a society that lived in a constant state of warfare and conflict. That would be the least important thing. It's funny when people talk about Warhammer and it's like, oh, well, why can't, why are most of the armies inhabited by men? And it's like, because in the horror future, women are required for breeding more men for the war.
yeah. And it's like, oh,
For
they
the
are in
meat
the army,
grinder.
and they are nothing more than like the other men, and that is being smushed.
Yeah, to be smushed and thrown into the meat grinder. And it doesn't fit in the universe even. But the Dragon Age that was isn't the Dragon Age that is. But we need to
Well, I
move along.
want to point out real quick that because this is a fantasy world, let's say that somebody does have cancer, they wouldn't like go and cut you open and remove the cancer. That's not what magic is for. They would magic it away, so you wouldn't even have scars.
Probably not.
Well, it's not there for cancer. Like we've
we
addressed the
know that.
absurdity
Well,
of
right.
its attachment to cancer, but it's not there for cancer.
Right. I'm just saying that you get sick in a fantasy world, they wave their magic wand and you get better.
No, we all know that. Anyway, so it's
This
like,
is
well,
the
what do you
one.
care? This is just a character creator. Well, it signals to the rest of us sort of the values that this company and the people that are making it value, which is fine if those are their values, but they do reflect in the game, and they do, because all canonical companion characters are pansexual. Not one of them is straight, which means you can romance every character no matter what combination. You can be a trans dwarf dating a black elf, and their sexual preferences don't matter because you can date everybody. Everybody can make out with the rest of them. Which means that the values of these game makers are reflected in the game as well. So it's not just a character creator and people having the capacity to represent themselves in the game the way that they want to for whatever reason. Is actually the values of the game itself.
Yeah.
By the way, so this is where, because I'd heard you mention this earlier, and so this is what I think. This like, I mean, this we could say this. I remember this starting with Mass Effect, but really, the game that has come out very recently, where you have a very like a pretty good character creator system, and you have very distinct romance options and like interpersonal things, was Baldur's Gate 3. And what game was huge in the terminally online communities but Baldur's Gate 3? And one of the things that I recall, I've not played this game, but I was friends with somebody who was very into this game when it first came out, because my PC would melt if I tried to make it, and it just barely came out on Xbox not that long ago. But is that some of those characters are, they have their sexuality, and so like if you play someone of a different gender, they won't be interested in you at all, right? And I'm sure in the terminally online world that bothered some people, just like I know it bothered people with Mass Effect way back in the day.
I want to romance who I want to romance.
But
Finish your thought. Chance just stumbled drunkenly into the podcast.
as usual.
And of course, we're the dirtbags, and then he says hi, Ross and Silver.
Yeah.
But to me, this is very much a, ooh, but what about me? We can do it too. Like these decisions they're making, because Baldur's Gate 3 made a gajillion dollars and was a huge meme factory and very popular. And now they want to get in on the action too, because by God, we have a fantasy IP that we can exploit in the same way, and we're going to do it too, and we're going to do it the way people want it done. I think that is the lamest. I mean, just purely from looking at it from and who knows, maybe the writing of these characters will be fantastic. I don't know. But I think it's lame as shit that you can romance every single NPC that you have in your party, because that is lame as hell, and that makes them not actual characters that are distinct and different.
It feels like an unfocused narrative.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
It's like infinite possibilities.
I don't mind that there are romance options for every single person in your party.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind that. What I mind is that they basically just said that it doesn't matter. We're not putting a sexuality on the party members. It's like it's wide open.
Yeah.
Like I said, it doesn't matter to me if you have some that are straight, some that are gay, some that are whatever, some that are pan. Who cares? But the fact that they're all the same way, that's what bugs me. Because if I don't want to romance them, I don't have to. But I could play a different character and get more enjoyment out of the game by replayability. But they've basically just tossed all the replayability out here.
Kind of, yeah.
It has nothing to say. If you can do anything, that there's nothing, then there is no narrative to take you in any direction, means it has nothing to say. Before Ross, Chance says, I want to romance an NPC and then cheat on them, possibly getting them to fight each other as a result. Pan, so people are out there banging cookware. Good Lord, Chance.
Yes.
By the way, in Starfield, I romanced a character to the point where we were engaged and I was going to meet her parents. And then for some reason, I'm talking to her and it gave the option of, we're literally almost going to be married. And I'm like, I don't think this is going to work out. And then just the horrific, destruction of the relationship. All of a sudden.
Would she still stick around in the party?
Well, she died, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, she's the one you sent to her death. I forgot about that. Right?
Yeah, I did send to her death.
You can't tell if she's 21 or 45.
Yeah, and I didn't like her anyway, so I just replaced her with a hotter, more exotic version.
Upgraded, huh?
Yeah, I did. Look, romance is in RPGs, and it always has been. And here's the thing. An RPG grants you possibility. It grants you options. You can do whatever you want to, romance and whatnot. I'm not necessarily opposed to options. Here's the issue. So as we've discussed with the character creator, art imitating life, I am not the heartbreaker, Chance. Anyway, I break their hearts before we ever get to that position. Anyway, the character creator issue isn't really about representation, and people aren't angry because of the representation. They aren't angry because of the woke signaling for the character creator or the signaling of its quote unquote woke for the game itself. The issue that many people really have is the normalizing of the practice. Now, we don't have a political agenda in this podcast, and I'm not going to weigh in on the transgender issue specifically. But what I am saying is that for those who deem the transgender issue self-mutilation and have issues with the idea of transgenderism itself, they see presenting things like double mastectomies in the character creator as trying to normalize a practice that they have serious moral issues with. And normalizing that practice also presents it in front of the eyes of children who are going to play this. Now you might react and going, yeah, but it's a mature rated game, and if children are playing it, then that's their parents' fault. And it's like, okay, but they're still gonna. And inevitably, when it comes to any of these issues, it always comes down to a culture war. And one side wants to present this thing as more inclusive and to represent people who are transgender as more, that they're out there and expose people to the possibility and expose people to the lives of transgender. Fine. If that's your agenda, fine. Don't pretend it's not, but if that's your agenda, fine. And then other people who oppose those issues, who might have an issue with it, who see it as mutilation or whatever, then fine. If that's your agenda, then fine. Stop pretending that I'm just making a game for fun for everybody. You have an agenda. That's what you have. Don't pretend that you can attract everybody and then make very controversial and contentious decisions like you've gone through already with the creation of this new Dragon Age game. If you're going to make it woke as hell. But don't be surprised when people go, I don't like woke, and then they don't purchase your game, and then it sinks because you're catering to a very vocal, small group of the gaming community that you're trying to cater to. Make it woke. I don't care. The problem is you're picking a side in the culture war, and you're making it very obvious, and it signals to everybody else who may have an issue with your position, or may even not really want politics inserted in their games, period, and you're turning them off, and they're going, ew, and then everybody goes, how dare you? How dare you dislike the things that we're putting into this game? And now you're just attacking fans for disliking what you're trying to do. It's not my obligation to buy your flipping game. I don't have an obligation to give you my money. You have an obligation to attract me to want to buy the game. And this game is not for me. And maybe it's for somebody out there who might love it and might find themselves in it and might get a lot out of it. Awesome. But believe it or not, as a company, it's your obligation to make money. And if the game shits the bed, it's not my fault. These decisions are on you.
Yep.
I'm going to get Chance's comment, and then you guys can fill in off of my rant. Imagine when AI really ramps up in NPCs and games, it becomes sort of kind of cognizant of what is going on. Well, then torture will be more fun. Anyway, anybody have something to
Brett's
say?
going to love it.
I'm going to love it.
So,
I just want to say that, like, I mean, because I'm looking at it as someone who has played like Dragon Age games in the past, right? It's been a while, but I did. And Dragon Age is this IP is no stranger to making games that people absolutely hate. The second game in the series, people were not happy with for very different reasons. But I mean, this is nothing new, and just the reason why people are getting a little people are getting their dander up or already writing it off or whatever is different. That's the only thing that's different. But dude, BioWare pissed people the fuck off back in, what was it, 2010 or 11? When they released Dragon Age 2. People were pissed off with that game. And it's going to happen again. I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be wrong, but I wager this game's going to release, and it's going to be middling at best. And it's just not going to, I don't think it'll make its money back. And of course, I'm with you, Rhett. It's gonna come out onto the social medias how could you not support this game and all this? Well, whatever. You win some, you lose some, man. This is the game you play when you're making these sorts of things. You didn't make a product people wanted, and this IP is no stranger to that. And maybe they'll figure it out for the fourth game, or the fifth game. But I doubt it at this point. I mean, BioWare has proven to not be very smart at changing things.
You remember BioWare Magic?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
You remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
So Dragon Age Inquisition, slightly behind the scenes. Apparently, that game was so poorly managed, so poorly put together, that this term BioWare Magic kept being thrown out. Apparently, BioWare has a problem with constant crunch, where they put their employees through hell trying to get these games out the door. And they call it BioWare Magic, where no matter how bad it is, we still get it out the door, and it's magic. So we always pull it off. And Inquisition was so bad that employees at that company were hoping and expecting that it was going to crash and burn, and that the executives at BioWare would learn their lesson. And to their horror, the game was successful because they went, oh no, they're not going to learn, and they're not going to fix the problems within the company. Lest we forget Andromeda, lest we forget all of the other issues with all of the other IPs that they've come out with.
Yeah, the Iron Man game.
Mass Effect 3. BioWare hasn't made a good game in a while. And Inquisition was a surprise because it was fun. The story was all right, but it was fun. We will see if they pull off quote-unquote BioWare magic with this one. But BioWare doesn't have a good track record when it comes to producing these games anyway.
It's been 10 years, I think, hasn't it? I mean, because Anthem flopped hard as hell. Andromeda flopped hard as hell. I mean, good lord, Mass Effect 3. I mean, Inquisition came out and did well despite Mass Effect 3's reception.
Yep. Despite it.
You know. So it's been... I can't think of a game they've released in the last 10 years that did super good.
To read some of Chance's comments, my pronouns are sword through the eye. That's the Dragon Age I want. I agree. The original, if you watch the cutscenes and background stuff for the first Dragon Age, basically the creators of the game kept repeating sword porn because that's what they wanted to do, was sword porn. Just a lot of sword fighting, blood. Remember, blood was a big thing. It was just cast blood all over your characters.
Absolutely.
You get out of a fight and you'd be drenched.
And then you have to talk to somebody right afterwards, and you're just
horrible. Yeah. Anyway, he says, I love the first 2 Dragon Age games. Inquisition lost me quickly. I just couldn't get into it. There you go. Jason kept wanting to intervene with something. Jason, what did you have to say?
Well, I was going to say, so just going back to the parents and stuff. I talked to Rhett about this experience before. I was at a GameStop, and a parent was wanting to buy Carmageddon for their kid. And the clerk, it was, if I remember right, it was the owner of the store at the time. She was behind the counter, and she said, "How old is your kid?" Because this was a mature rated game, and he's like, "Oh, he's 6." And the look of horror on her face for just a second, and then she's like, "This isn't a game for kids." And she tried to explain to the parent. He didn't end up purchasing the game. But I can't tell you how many parents are completely oblivious to the ratings and to the appropriateness of the content for the kids. And if their kids ask for a game, regardless of whether it is age appropriate for them, the parents will go get it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the culture of assenting to their kid because their friends have it, and I can't not have it.
Yeah.
I have a weird specific memory of being... So, I'm old. But I was like 8 or 10, and I was in a EB Games or a GameStop, I forget which. And I remember this like salesman was like, "Hey, yo," because I picked up Turok, I think, on the N64. He's like, "Oh yeah, you know, we can get you. You know, you want to get that game?" And I'm like, "Well, it's rated M. Like my mom won't let me get that." He's like, "Well, you can turn off the blood in it." And I just remember, like, if you got caught doing that now, you'd be in so much trouble with corporate.
Imagine how many kids had parents buy them Last of Us 2 and parents walking into the room as they're having the awkward sex scene with the very masculine woman. Like, and imagine how many times that happened. Some 8-year-old sitting there playing Last of Us 2.
By the way, or even just the violence in that game, people just screaming after you blow off their leg from the kneecap down with a shotgun. Like, my God. Because the violence in that game is really quite stark and horrific to look at. Like, just...
Well, and Chant says, parents are out here buying GTA for their kids without batting an eye. SMH. Well, you, like a lot of parents, are very bad at what you do, and parents should be more active in their kids' lives. But that does not excuse and does not mean we can't push back against games that we think are going to be bad for children. Whether or not the company hears it is another story. And I'm not saying that's our position. It sounds like Dragon Age Veilguard is not for children, but I also wouldn't recommend Grand Theft Auto for your children. But some parents are bad, like Chance. Silver, I'm curious what your reaction to all of this drama with Dragon Age is.
Yeah, I generally knew nothing really about Dragon Age. But it feels like we kind of talked about it earlier. It feels like they're trying to do a Baldur's Gate and just go like, but look, we can do this thing that they didn't.
Yeah.
But they're doing the thing of
Because
like
Baldur's Gate was popular,
look.
so we're going to copy it.
Yeah. But they're doing the thing where, of course, they're trying to insert stuff like, look, this stuff for the very much minority of the players who are going to play this. You all will love it, and they think it's going to rake in the big cash. Like, no, you're just going to lose most of your players there by doing that.
Well, is this a turnoff for
So
you?
it's just ridiculous. It is. Yeah, I'm like, not playing that game.
So with the information revealed about this game, obviously we've been very focused on the controversial stuff. Does this game interest anybody in this podcast?
No.
No.
I mean, I was at one point interested in Dragon Age because I played the first game. I played the second game. But yeah, it's just it's going away from let's build a fun experience for our players into let's push our agenda to our players.
Yeah.
I lost interest earlier in the summer when we watched the not E3 coverage.
The purple magic E3 coverage. Well, Chance, bring us to the news dump.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast. Big steaming pile of news dump.
Oh no, Chance, I'm never getting rid of that. You'll be cursed with that forever. That being said, it's the news dump. We've got lots of stuff to go through and a little bit of time to do it. Initially, I'm going to go through something really quickly. The news dump is a turd. We got to push it out. We got to get it done. Some interesting news. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Somebody sort of wrote an article in that part place talking about the numbers and difference between God of War Ragnarok and God of War 2018. Essentially, looking at the numbers on Steam, it looks like God of War Ragnarok is its peak was 31,000 and the other one was 73. And a lot of people, when they claim, because Sweet Baby Inc. was involved with Ragnarok, and the claim was, well, that game was successful. And it was. Not as popular as the first one, though. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can...
As it could have been.
Well, and I don't know if you can imply that's because of the woke inclusive politics that were put into Ragnarok. Or the game wasn't as interested. Who can describe the motives? But there are some fixed numbers that we can tell, and Ragnarok is financially not as successful as the one before. I think overall sales for 2018 was like 25 million, and Ragnarok was like 15, as I recall. Mm-hmm. So a bit of a side news. A lot of people have been talking about it. I brought it up, but it's like, I mean, it wasn't as good. Are you going to prescribe the quote-unquote woke politics? You're going to prescribe they didn't like the game as much, or whatever. It's hard to exactly delineate why the game wasn't successful, but it wasn't as successful.
It does make you wonder, if they weren't involved, would it have been as successful or more, or if it would have hit that same level?
Well, it was controversial to race swap basically Nordic gods and characters. There was some pushback from that.
And I remember nerds trying to wave it off because, well, the 2018 one was good. By the way, I don't think it was that good. Fuck you, God of War 2018. But I mean, isn't it funny that the other Sony's big sequel to another game from right before the pandemic also didn't do as well? Your favorite, Rhett, Spider-Man 2?
Spider-Man did poor by comparison to the first one.
Yep. And it's
still
just
financially successful.
Oh, yeah. It's not like it ate
not as
shit.
Good as the first one.
No.
Let's move on. So here's the thing. I've got this article for this, but I'm going to try and summarize this off of this article as quickly as I can. So there is some behind-the-scenes information from somebody that worked with Concord in producing the game. And according to information that was leaked to Colin Moriarty, whether or not you like him as a podcaster, you think his information is legitimate, is another story. But according to the information he got from people that worked on the game from behind the scenes, the company thought it was internally referred to as the future of PlayStation, with Star Wars-like potential and a dev culture of toxic positivity that halted any negative feedback. And it was their speculation that the cost of the game is probably closer to $400 million.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh my god! Isn't that more than Star Citizen?
Yeah.
Fuck! Oh my god! I never thought I would defend Chris Roberts, but you spent more than Star Citizen. At least has some like big vision that they're trying to reach. They're never gonna. But at least it has, like, at least it's going for, like, reaching for the... This is a fucking hero shooter. What the fuck? $400 million? This can't be true. I refuse to believe Sony is this stupid. I refuse to believe this. What the fuck?
Well, Ross, there are games that are bigger in scope that took less time to produce. Remind you, this was 8 years in development that had an extensive group of diversity advisors involved with the company. The story about the one woman who demanded people call her professor and would hold like classes where people had to sit and listen to her lecture in front of them in the conference room.
Oh,
like this is the culture. Like after the beta and a lot of the feedback from people, they were told behind the scenes, ignore the negative feedback. The game's going to be great. And people reacted to the game negatively in the beta, and they ignored it on purpose.
Holy shit.
Toxic positivity is something I can buy that existed behind the scenes. $400 million would be fascinating.
I'm going to kind of disagree with you a little bit, Ross. I do think Sony is that dumb. The thing is that they looked around and they saw how much Fortnite was making, and they're like, "Oh, we could make that much money." And they pushed this
not just Fortnite, but Overwatch.
Yeah,
Overwatch.
Yeah, Overwatch. They looked at that and said, "We could do Overwatch money with this," and they pushed it out. And they're like, "Yeah, no, you can't."
What happened to the horrible 80s coordinator?
You guys back?
Brett? Yeah, you went away. We could all hear each other, but not
Here's
you.
the thing, I didn't go away, you went away.
Oh, is that
no,
so?
you're the problem.
You're the problem, Silver.
You are.
But yeah.
Chance, let's start a consulting group called Sour Baby and tell devs how to make games as toxic as possible. Those titles will sell like gangbusters.
I can't imagine looking at the characters that you made for this game for Concord and thinking this is Star Wars in scope. Like this is going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially when you look around at the other hero shooters, you know, your Apex Legends, your Overwatch. There's one that I'm forgetting because I don't like hero shooters, but like they're all distinct or cool, or maybe a little original, or very good looking. Like there's some like they all have something to them, even if you're not a hero shooter guy like me. Like you look at the heroes in Concord, they're hideous. They're a horror to look upon. Like, who wants to play that? Like, part of the point of hero shooters is seeing the cool characters move around and shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
And finding out the character you like the most, and because they're, according to you, they're the coolest. They have the coolest powers or whatever. Yeah.
Anyway, let's not dwell on this too long. We've got a news dump to get through. So there's an interesting drama that happened with Gen Con. If you're not aware of what Gen Con is, it is the Dungeons & Dragons tabletop convention that was started in like the 70s or 80s. I think 80s.
Oh.
big convention that's been going on for a long time. And there was an interesting drama that happened behind the scenes. I'm going to summarize this as quickly as possible and read some of the commentary from this Twitter thread who goes through it pretty quickly. So apparently, the Writers Symposium team, which is hired by Gen Con to put together the Writers Symposium, which is the presentation, so to speak, at Gen Con that people go and attend. They've had guys like Brandon Sanderson on and a bunch of others. And they tend to be very popular and very packed, and people go and listen to writers talk about their work. Anyway, the Writers Symposium team seem to have been co-opted politically towards a political agenda, in particular the LGBTQ agenda or whatever you want to be. I mean, the convention was started by Gary Gygax. It was started in 1968.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Mega nerds. These were mega nerds.
Yes. Anyway, the Writer Symposium ended up being chaired in 2024 by Edie Bell, pictured here. Wanted to focus the event on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all this, the committee was supposed to book 4 writers. They only booked 2. Horror writer Linda Addison and cultural critic and author of Hood Feminism, Mickey Kendall. Gen Con does not take political stances. They were expecting an event featuring popular fantasy authors, and instead, the symposium committee delivered a panel of social justice activists. The convention organizers were furious with the symposium committee. There was an emergency meeting between the symposium committee and leaders at the convention, organizers, and several more contentious meetings. The organizers complained Kendall had zero appeal, and Bell accused the organizers of being racist for disagreeing with this. Ultimately, Bell and the symposium committee demanded complete autonomy and control over the symposium and threatened to blow up the whole event and go public if they didn't get it. And it was too late at this point to change plans, so Gen Con relented. The woke panel for 2024 occurred as planned.
Right there.
Mickey Kendall was the guest of honor, and when it was done, Gen Con shit-canned the whole symposium organizing committee.
Oh my God.
Bell is furious. Gen Con organizers are refusing to have any further meetings with her. They are refusing to even talk to her. Hopefully, Gen Con can heal after excising these toxic presences, and a better committee can put together a panel for 2025 that celebrates art instead of activism. Anyway, that was a drama at Gen Con. Thoughts?
Oh my gosh. So there is a time and place for stuff like this. This is not that place. And unfortunately, while I agree with the sentiment behind diversity, equity, and inclusion, I agree with the sentiment. It's become a battering ram. It's become a club. And so every time I hear it, I know, you just know it's going to be used inappropriately.
By the way, can I just say that, I mean, one of the big arguments online with around all these sorts of niche communities around nerddom, you know, whether it's tabletop gaming or you know, certain
Dungeons and Drag Queens.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer or, you know, all sorts of things like that, Magic the Gathering. There's this argument going on about gatekeeping and people, you know, invading spaces and stuff like that. This person literally had control over this certain aspect of Gen Con 1 year and fucked it up so bad with their own personal, what I assume is her personal feelings and ideas and things like that they just ousted the whole thing. They just torched it.
Yeah.
That whole aspect of Gen, fuck it, we're not dealing with that again.
Well, and the nerve to have like a power battle where she threatened to torch the whole thing down if they didn't relent to giving her full control over the Writer Symposium, which they had no choice to relent to. And as soon as the convention was over, they threw them out.
Like,
which is the appropriate reaction.
Oh, absolutely. But all this does is prove the people that say or feel that there is an invasion of these spaces going on by people with certain motives. I mean, how could this not prove that?
It totally does.
Yeah, like, and they're doing it badly is the thing that's so embarrassing. They are, at least the communist writers in the 30s and 40s had the gall to write good movies.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake, these people are fucking hacks.
But it looks like there was an attempt to take over, or there was a power struggle, and they won temporarily and got shit canned because they don't own the convention, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you think would happen?
I mean, honestly.
This is Dungeons and Dragons. Like I said, there's a place for this kind of stuff. This is not that place.
No.
When you go to Gen Con, the reason you're going to Gen Con is because you love Dungeons and Dragons and you want to find out more things that can make your player experience more deep. This is not what they were doing at the symposium.
It was an ideological takeover. And Chance makes a comment and says, the alphabet crowd has grown to feel that they have baked in right to impose their ideology on everybody. I agree. But we have more stuff to get through. I'm going to try and get through really quickly the Inside Out drama. So apparently behind the scenes, after individuals have been laid off from Pixar, because of that, I think they laid off something like 17% of their company. We got some so-called behind-the-scenes commentary on what went on with Inside Out 2. And apparently Inside Out 2 had some horrific crunch time coming up to the release, where people are working 7 days a week and things are really bad, and there was rewrites and all this sort of thing. And that the working, that basically there was a lot of demands for overtime and what have you. Adding on to this, now, once again, I haven't gone into this in great detail, so if you're annoyed with me that I didn't get all the elements perfectly correct, I don't care. Look it up yourself. Anyway, 14% of its staff. See, I said 17. I'm super wrong. Cancel.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, one of the bigger points of this, which is interesting, is some of those that were laid off that IGN spoke to has some interesting things to say. IGN spoke to 10 former Pixar employees for this story under the condition of anonymity. They go into detail about the pains of the layoffs, the financial struggles those layoffs have left them with, and the details behind one source calls the largest crunch in the studio's history. It is a claim disputed by the senior executive at Pixar who tells IGN that the crunch at the end of Inside Out 2 was no different from those on many other films from the studio. But the fact remains there are many who feel like they rushed to give Pixar the hit it so desperately needed and were hung out to dry. I would venture that at least 95% of the people that got laid off are financially effed right now, one person says. You probably would be, you were laid off. Outside of the financial strain of it all, sources also paint a picture of a studio that was terrified to rock the boat, with some internally pushing to avoid LGBTQ themes, requiring edits to Inside Out 2. Its studio, they say, that's overly reliant on the chief executive officer, Pete Docter, stubbornly set in his ways and setting its remaining team up for more crunch on its future films. The internal culture of Pixar right now is really rough. One former employee says there is just an incredible amount of people who are like, I can't do this anymore. Didn't incline to comment. But it seems like word behind the scene is there was a deliberate effort to de-gay the main character, and any possible representation that the character might be gay, they wanted to either tone it down or eliminate it completely. And a lot of this seems to have been attached to the response to Lightyear, because they had a gay kiss in the movie and it did not go over well, and they were worried this movie was going to crash and burn. So it seems like they were to come across as less gay, leading to numerous edits that ramped up around September 2023 after the resolution of the WGA strike. Sources describe rumors that there are special care put into making the relationship between Riley and Val, a supporting character introduced in Inside Out 2, seem as platonic as possible, even requiring edits to the lights and tone of certain scenes to remove any trace of romantic chemistry. And it seems like this was successful because, believe it or not, this has gone down as the most successful animated film of all time, with $1.6 billion in revenue. Anyway, you concerned that Pixar's trying to de-gay things to make sure that their movies have appeal? Because it seems like if they did de-gay it, it was successful.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
what does that tell you, Pixar?
yeah. I mean, the crunch thing is a concern of a different topic, right? Like,
Exactly.
like that's one thing, and you know, as in video gaming, is a topic that should be talked about, and the rest of CGI and film. But you know, the whole game, like, okay, so they made a decision and they stuck with it, like just like they made a decision before to include some of that sort of stuff before and stuck with it. Like, so what? Like,
I have a comment in the chat,
me-
which I think Chance Ross can actually respond to. Sage says, considering that the main character is a child, I don't think that it's too bad that they advocated for that. I agree.
yeah, me too. Like, okay, and I mean, and by the way, some of the comments I saw online regarding what people wanted that whole situation to be is creepy as shit.
Yes,
and
they
should
were
be ashamed of
pushing.
themselves.
They were pushing for her to have some sort of romantic gay thing going on. Well, and
yeah,
it makes
in
it
the
less
grossest way
relatable because the story's about sort of puberty and emotions and what have you, and
Mhm.
you alienate part of your audience when you make it focused on sort of. I don't want to say gay agenda, but focused on a sexuality that might not be attractive to others.
Or even just sexuality and like I mean, I don't know, if you make it super horny, this is a show for kids.
I
Exactly.
agree.
Like, you know,
Parents are not going to take their kids to this movie.
you can have a wink and a nod in there, but anything
Yeah.
more than that is just, it's a strange choice you're making.
Any jokes of that nature need to go flying right over the kid's head, and the only people who should get it are the parents.
Yep.
But it seems like with the story, they were trying to go in a completely opposite direction to make it outstandingly obvious what they were doing here. And that just meant that this would have been a bomb. And the fact that they reeled it back and they did it tastefully, and they're like, no, these two people are just friends, that resonated with the audience. And now we have a Pixar movie that has made more money than any other animated film in history.
Yeah,
That it
it
kind
was
of shows
successful.
that maybe the higher ups are learning a little bit of their lesson, but that the line workers aren't. The line workers are like, oh, it totally sucks that we had to take this out of the movie, and it and the higher ups are saying, look, we took it out of the movie so it would make money.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we would have
I mean,
tanked here. I mean, come on.
my
that's what we're
standard,
here for.
regardless of the culture war, is please don't sexualize children. That was always my standard.
Seriously.
Across the board. Let's. I mean, high school, I suppose you start talking about it. Please don't sexualize the children.
Yeah.
At any rate, let's move on. Jason, really quickly.
Our other standard is do whatever you want, but just realize that you may not be making money off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, apparently the Lord of the Rings showrunners have attacked fans and viewers for abandoning the show.
Because that always has gone over well.
Speaking with Hollywood Reporter, the Fellowship had to look to each other and those who support it and remember that what it's fighting for, as if this is a cause.
Oh my god.
It is a cause. To
And
them,
when we see
that's why
that
it's a
millions, and when we see that millions of people are watching this and responding so positively to it, that's what we're fighting for. And then he
Who?
added,
Where?
and those who watch
exactly.
every episode and negatively write about it on social media. We don't write, we make YouTube videos. We're happy to have you guys too. It wouldn't be a journey through Middle Earth without some trolls along the way. I would venture to say, and obviously I'm biased, and you guys are too. But our goal when reviewing Rings of Power isn't to troll. No. We're genuinely watching it and responding to it. I'm not here to run around and cause a shit fit and cause problems.
The connotation the connotation of trolling is that you're doing it for the reaction.
Yeah.
We're really not doing it for the reaction. Now, if we get a reaction, that's one thing. But if we watch it and we're like, look, see these holes, see these things that aren't good, see this, that's not because we're trying to troll you. It's actually we're pointing out the stupid stuff you did.
Well, that's what a critic, I suppose, would do. Not that we're professional critics, but we're criticizing it.
Yeah, and like, I. By the way, I guess we're trolls now because they reacted like
Yeah.
fucking idiots. Like, why are you doing that? Like, they're making. Oh my god, you?
Don't feed the trolls, I guess.
Well, and I would urge them to try and find YouTube, video essays or reviews on these that are positive. Good luck. I've tried. It's hard. It's really hard, and when you do, nobody's watching them because nobody agrees with it. Like, it is tough to
I
find.
wonder if the people who are putting up positive reviews and things, if one of the reasons that people are not watching those reviews are because they think that they're just shilling.
Yeah, that's part of it, I'm sure. And I think most of the positive vibes for this show are coming from places like Twitter. Let's be real.
Yep.
Which
We're gonna
not indicative they watched it. Anyway,
we're gonna move on really quickly. Back in October 2022, after the first show's first season, Payne described critics of the show as evil. He told Hollywood Reporter, "The spirit of Tolkien is about disparate people who don't trust one another and look different from one another, finding common ground in friendship and accomplishing big things." That's not really the spirit of
what it is at all.
That's the spirit we tried to inculcate into every single comment period in the show. Oh, well, okay. And then he addressed critics that this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them. It's very hard for us to understand. What are they protecting? I don't see how people who are saying these things think they're fighting for good. Well, here's the thing, really quickly. All right. I'm not offended by, I guess, people working together and finding friendships. What I'm offended by, and if I am fighting for anything or protecting anything, is Tolkien's legacy. And I'm offended when you change the work and intentions of the original author, who, by the way, would hate your show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, he would.
By the way, is it not the most ironic shit in the world? This guy is doing this, defending a show he's making for a company, and a man who owns that company, who buys publications to silence his critics. I mean, buddy, you're working for the evil fucking empire. Like, what's wrong with you? You're mad at people criticizing this, saying they're evil or something? Like, what the fuck? You work for the evil company that won't let people take piss breaks.
At least he's not biting the hand that feeds him.
Ugh, fuck, he should.
He totally. You are correct. He should.
For God's sake! What an asshole!
I'm going to end with this quote. There's a line in episode 7 where Galadriel says, "Every war is fought from within and without. Even if you're fighting for something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil." I don't see how people are saying these things think that they are fighting for good. It's patently evil. Ross, you're patently evil?
Yep, I guess I am, and by God, I'm wearing it with pride. I am an Uruk in this guy's world, I guess. By the way, isn't one of these assholes from Utah? Should I be shamed of my own state right now?
They're both LDS. They're both the show creators.
Fucking hate both of them, and they are ashamed of the religion. What fucking assholes! I mean, my God, it's bad enough that the poor religion has to deal with Orson Scott Card, that fucking blatant communist.
I don't claim these people.
Oh God.
Regardless, let's shift on in the news dump. Jason.
So, Asmongold did a YouTube video recently where she, they, I'm not sure. Anyway, he talked about
it's a man.
So the current state of video games, he said that they're messaging or imposing morals on gamers. And then someone claiming to be Saber Interactive CEO Matthew Karch replied to this person, "Hey man, CEO of Saber here, love your videos." And the thing is that, like, he hasn't come out and said that, like, no, it wasn't me, but he hasn't said that it was him either. Either way, it was like, I approve this message. He said something like, it says, "I hope that games like Space Marine 2 and Wukong are the start of a reversion to a time when games were simply about fun and immersion." So that was a direct quote from him. Whether or not he actually responded to the message, we don't know. He isn't, like I said, he isn't admitting it, but at least he's admitting that he's on board with the sentiment behind the message. So I found that pretty interesting.
And by all accounts, it seems like Space Marine 2 is doing extremely well.
Yeah.
Very well. So
good
is
for them.
Wukong.
Yeah, so is Wukong, so good for them. I am happy for their success. Good games
By the way,
that don't preach to me. Yes.
Can I derail for a slight moment?
Yes.
And say that there is a fun, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but it is a theory. Conspiracy is a little strong considering this is just entertainment, but I for one will not be supporting the monkey game because fuck the CCP and those communists. And there is a theory that because the CCP is known to push and fund ESG in the West, right?
Yeah.
This is a well-known thing.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know, the games that are coming out of and the entertainment coming out of China doesn't have any of that. And I don't know, just seems very interesting that because look, most of these companies look at it purely from a financial point of view, and they go, "Oh, well, we can get money if we have these things. Well, let's just do that." Now, some of them do have their own personal points of views. Some of these CEOs or whoever,
They
right?
do.
Some of these mucks.
Just
But I
remind
guarantee
everybody.
you they do it more for money.
Well, just remind everybody, they put out a statement for early reviewers to accept a copy early in order to review it. Like they put out early reviewer stuff where they had to agree to not be political or talk about feminism or a bunch of other things. And the not being political also included criticism of the CCP and bringing up the Uyghurs in concentration camps.
Right.
So,
And
I mean,
so it's just
complete
interesting to me.
non-political is something. Where that money goes is another story. Yeah.
Right. So it's just interesting to me that on one hand, and you know, you could say, well, this is just a company. You know, they are not a part of the CCP, but you know, that line is a much fuzzier thing than say in most other countries. Like, let's be real, because of the way their political system works. But I just wanted to derail on that real quick.
All right. All right.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
Jason?
Okay. So, Pal World comes out, right? And everybody's like, this is so much like Pokemon with guns, right? And there were a ton of people that were going, you know, this is a lawsuit in the making.
Yeah, especially
People thought
Nintendo.
that what was going to happen was that Nintendo would base the lawsuit on a copyright infringement.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently they're not doing that. Apparently now what they're doing is they're suing based on patent infringement.
Yep. And particularly
patent
throwing
Pokemons?
balls.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
patent you can have?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Throwing balls to capture animals or something.
Yeah, so kind of the difference is, you know, a patent protects an invention, and so they invented this throwing balls thing in a game.
Oh my God.
And the copyright protects the art. And so while you have this total Pokemon looking dude here that looks so much like an actual Pokemon from Pokemon, they're like, yeah, it's not. Apparently, this wasn't close enough, so they've dropped that part of the law, the pursuant of the lawsuit, and completely shifted gears here.
Yeah, I've heard of the lawsuit.
Interesting.
I can't remember if it's ongoing. I heard something in the terms of 15 million, so maybe they lost. I don't know. Maybe they're seeking $15 million. So a final story, which I think Chance is going to think is, Chance isn't here. Ross is going to enjoy. So we've got more news coming out of Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ross.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to go very well. This news is awesome.
So Ubisoft had somebody that they paraded around as an example of a Japanese expert. That they used as a way of like, well, we've got a Japanese expert, and they sign off on the game in a token sort of way, if you will. The individual Kazuma Hashimoto, identifying as a him, I guess. The individual does not look like a biological man, but we're going to set that aside. That being said, they paraded this individual around as a Japanese expert to point at and say, see, Japan likes it. It's only the West has a problem with this game. Well, it turns out, after digging, that this is a former member of Sweet Baby Inc.
Oh my gosh. It's all coming together.
They're like roaches, baby. Once they're in there, you can't get them out. By God, they're going to survive the nuclear apocalypse. Oh my God.
And also using a token Japanese person didn't seem to be successful, as the Japanese government was formally looking into what was going on with the game and formally asked the game company to consider some of the historical accuracies because of the massive amount of complaints from Japanese gamers themselves who had issues with the game as well. There's a famous song by a Japanese YouTuber criticizing Assassin's Creed Shadows. Hilariously enough. But to no one's surprise, Kazuma Hashimoto is a former Sweet Baby Inc. employee.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
So
Sweet Baby
we
Inc.
got
also works on the game. Shockingly.
Oh my
enough.
God.
We got a comment from Sage Cruzy.
Well, we already-
I did hear that they are pursuing the patent in Japan, which is very strict for both copyright and patents. So they may have balanced the scales in their favor anyway.
Interesting. I know Japan doesn't have fair use laws.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, they don't. Yeah. I remember you telling
So
me that.
copyright's a big issue with them. But that is an interesting point. I appreciate the comment, Sage. That being said, I think we have rolled out the end of this podcast. Lots of fun stuff to talk about. I think we've been as mature and fair on the commentary of Dragon Age. I'm sure somebody who's ideologically bent is not going to think so, but what are you going to do? Jason, anything to finish with? Thoughts on tonight's discussion?
I liked what you said earlier about, just make the game you want.
Yeah.
If you want to make it woke, make it woke. Go as big and bad and hard as you want in whatever direction you want. I don't care. But don't be surprised when that game doesn't then do well. Don't be blaming it on us, because we have no obligation to give you our money. For one, something that we don't find fun, and two, something that we may find that is morally reprehensible. So don't be surprised, but don't blame us. You're the one that decided to make the game, not us.
Well, and it's often the result of these things is what they tend to do is they go, well, I'm not going to make a woke game because that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an already established IP that has name notoriety and fan base, and then I'm going to change it to insert my politics, as opposed to make a game and just make it political. They they take over essentially already established IPs, and then they turn them into a message board for their activism. But yeah.
And then they blame us when it doesn't do well. So
I am directly at fault with my massive audience that I cater to. Ross?
I look forward to seeing how these games perform. I know it won't be well, and I have prepared my smug face for when it happens.
Prepare that smug face.
Yes.
Silver.
Yeah, I can't wait to see future reactions of Dragon Age, whatever more comes out about it. Especially, I want to hear more about Assassin's Creed and what the heck is going to come of that.
That is going to be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be great to watch it burn. But I don't know. It just brings up the same sentiments of last week. I've abandoned all hope on good video games.
Well, Space Marine 2, I think, I believe it or not, I think we've already hit peak and we're on the downside. being political. I think what we're getting are games that have been in development for years who are running on a previous political activist model that are no longer successful today. And they're coming out when that's not sort of the trend anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. At any rate, we're going to leave. I appreciate Chance and Sage for commenting. We're, stuff to do, rings of power to talk about. But we're going to get out of here kicking and screaming. I don't love any of you, and Silver's getting a punching. You know who I'm really going to beat with my dissatisfaction in the workplace. Like, I went to the factory and I'm unhappy with my life, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to beat my Android wife. Because of you,
and eventually
Silver.
I'll make enough money to get the Android Kid upgrade.
Yep. So they can they can cry in their room and wear headphones so they can't hear parents arguing. At any rate, we're getting out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.